Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV. It is Friday, July 11th, 2025, TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God I'm free, that we're all free and we're hanging on to that freedom. So glad to have you back on the channel. I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So glad to be back with you here today. Yeah, there's so much going on that it is massive, and so we're going to do my version here of breaking it down, kind of spreading around what's happening out there. And of course, I always start by saying thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Appreciate everybody, especially contributing monthly to keep this channel going. And I'm so thankful. And I'm going to put on the glasses and we're going to jump in. So we've got so much happening here. Of course, the Epstein stuff just continues to go on, and it's just a massive thing, and it's very important. And of course, we have Patel making it clear this afternoon that no, he's not going to be resigning from the FBI over anything to do with Pam Bondi that Dan Bongino has as assistant FBI director. Basically said that he's kind of fed up with what's been going on with the Epstein stuff, and that he is considering resigning. And then it came out maybe Patel is going to resign as well, but that apparently is not true, because there also is a massive conspiracy case that has to do with, of course, the stealing of the 2020 election, but way, way back to 2016, and the attempt to basically put a coup into the United States over the election of Donald Trump, everything, Russiagate, all of that, huge with Brennan, Clapper, Comey, where this is going to actually elevate into a major conspiracy case. And Patel has said he is not leaving. It doesn't look like Bondi is going to be leaving as the AG. And there's so much here. Okay. And the Epstein stuff, the what's going on in Texas, Trump's visit there today, what's going on with the global AI governance, the World Economic Forum, everything to try to attack the United States for our Constitution and Bill of Rights. There's so much going on. So let me just dig into this Patel situation. So apparently they're going to be basically getting a grand jury together, and that there will be a special counselor, a special counsel and special prosecutor announced in the next week or so to do with the conspiracy case to what is treason, basically interfere with the 2016 election, the whole 10 years here of the attack on Trump, beginning with Crossfire Hurricane. And so this is very good news. It's, justthenews.com is putting this out. But there's also just all this kind of trying to quell the Epstein mania that is very real and very true, but also in the midst of a massive America trying to have a recovery and trying to economically recover as all of this is going down with Israel, Ukraine, and the total onslaught on Trump to try to manage it all. While we saw Rubio in Malaysia, okay, he was in Malaysia for a basic summit there, met with Sergei Lavrov out of Russia to talk more about the Ukraine situation, the war, and said they might have come up with a third option here, with a different option for a peace plan that could happen to do with the Ukraine war. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes here that is massively important. This is as we're hearing that Trump is supposedly okaying the sale of more missile systems to the NATO countries to then sell or give or whatever they want to do with Ukraine, to keep the U.S. away from direct war with Ukraine, but basically say, here you go, NATO, do whatever you're going to do. And we don't want that. Okay, on this channel, we don't want that. And I'm going to talk about that here, why we can't afford it. We don't have it. We have Bridge Colby, the Undersecretary of State there, Undersecretary of Defense under Hegseth, desperately trying to pivot the USA towards Asia and the CCP, saying we don't have these missile systems. And already you have, Germany, Spain, Greece in NATO, in the EU that wants to have this World War III. They already have those Patriot missile systems. They can give them already. We don't need to send more. We can't afford it. We can't deplete our systems. And we have this issue where Taiwan had already ordered enormous amounts of them. Let me see if I can find that right now. Taiwan had already paid for like 500 Patriot missiles and has still not gotten those delivered because they were given to Ukraine instead under Biden. And so this is a whole situation where we need to get out of Ukraine. That's just the reality. Okay, USA has to get out of Ukraine. Understand that Russia has won the war in Ukraine. It's won by Russia, and that's what happens in war. And to remember that Ukraine was considered the most corrupt nation basically on earth, which is a huge competition there for the most corrupt nations. Could have been USA, but I mean, literally when we look around the world of rogue, states, and Ukraine was the number one. They did the coup so they could do the biowarfare there. They could do all the organ trafficking, the child trafficking, the sex trafficking, all of it, all of the stealing of the natural gas, all of it through Ukraine. That was basically, this whole setup for World War III. And for Trump to even engage anymore, do not give more of our missile systems to NATO countries. They have enough. They can give them if they want, and they can protect themselves. Because we know, as I've been talking about on this channel forever, in the war of attrition here of Russia with this massive 675,000 person army amassed there to basically do a summer offensive, they don't have the manpower, and the only way it can happen is that the EU puts troops in or the USA puts troops in, because there's no other way. It's done. It's over. And so we'll see what comes out of Rubio, who, even though has done some pretty great stuff when it comes to USAID, et cetera, still has massive, ties to Israel and all of this. And what's going on here with the Netanyahu meetups here in DC all week is all of this, give our weapons to Israel and Ukraine, give our weapons to Israel and Ukraine. And no, we can't do it. That's my position here on the channel. And so, basically, Bridge Colby, as I said, who they're trying to oust, they're trying to get rid of Hegseth, they're trying to get rid of Colby. But Colby, they're really trying to attack him because he's basically saying, we need to pivot to China. We need to pivot that the U.S. can defend ourselves against what's about to happen in Taiwan, where we actually have a real interest, which we do not in Ukraine. We don't need rare earth minerals. We just saw a new rare earth minerals mining project opening up in Wyoming. That's going to be happening here immediately with 8 rare earth minerals, all the EOMs, all these different rare earth minerals that are really important for semiconductors and also magnets, et cetera. That's already happening here in Wyoming. They're saying there's enough for 750 years. It's a big deal. And so basically this whole rare earths deal with Ukraine isn't important, and to just get out. And the massive pressure that's on Trump and everything that's coming down with Epstein and the leveraging that's going on there. And so when we look at things like we see Clinton Global Initiative is now on the ground in Kerr County, Texas. Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton Foundation, was started by Jeffrey Epstein, And we know wherever they go, there's child trafficking, there's awful, disgusting stuff. And so now they're doing the Grift right there in Kerr County, where I'll link it below on their website. They're saying, donate, give us money, right? Remember Bill Clinton and George W. Bush sitting there for the Haiti disaster, where they're saying, give us your money. Yeah, this is what they're doing now in Kerr County. And you have to wonder with this flood weather weapons on Mystic and the river and everything. Was this a shot across the bow? Because the major action point really for this video today is that you want to be calling your senators 202-224-3121 and your representatives 202-225-3121, billblasterapp.org, all of it to basically, this is what they're trying to do. Okay, so the AI moratorium, okay, that was supposed to do with basically giving the big tech the ability to take over our entire country, through all the states not being able to make laws to stop what they were doing to access every data. Our most valuable stuff at this point in this new world AI-driven data system is our data. Okay, it's kind of our most valuable asset outside of our tangible real assets. Are, if you're lucky enough to own a house or have savings or gold or whatever, but your data belongs to you, and it should be a whole different economic system whether or not you want to sell it. But I don't think that should be a thing, and I certainly would never sell mine. However, that moratorium, AI moratorium, that got shot down 99-1 because of Marsha Blackburn doing her massive 36-hour stint there to get it out of the Senate bill. Now they're sticking it in the NDAA, and that's happening this week. The markups in private, totally in secret. You've got Josh Hawley out of Missouri saying he will make sure that it doesn't get in the NDAA, that he will hold it up, give him big ups, that he is saying, we're not going to have AI tech bros control our country. And the thing that's important to understand here as part of this, and what's coming out of like the AI summit in Geneva this week, et cetera, is that these tech bros, companies, Palantir, all of them, they don't want just your data. They want in to places like Sandia National Labs, all these DARPA-run areas. Okay, JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, used to be Jack Parsons Laboratory. They want to they want to say, hey, let's, our AI can come in and control this. This is how we can compete with China. And so they're trying to stick this into the NDAA, and you need to call your senators and representatives to say no, no. After this hard-won fight, massive amounts of Americans calling in, thousands and thousands, calling to protest this, MTG, Marsha Blackburn, heavy lifting, everybody getting it out, and even Chip Roy, who is the representative for Kerr County, Texas, where this hit then came, okay, that, hit Camp Mystic, so much more going on there, 40 kids camps there in Kerr County, and a massive assault, massive child sacrifice there of weather weapons, and the dude from Rainmaker going on all these MAGA channels and pretending like I'm a man of God and cloud seeding is good. Basically an 8-foot wall of water, blew out the windows of what is the youngest girl's, place where they stay at Mystic, and this is the Bubble Inn, and 17 girls were just rushed out and killed and drowned, all right, in that. And of course, Trump was there today with Melania and multiple senators and representatives meeting, and he and Melania meeting with the families for quite a long time. And so it's very interesting that then you get Clinton Global Initiative on the ground there, started by money from Epstein, money from Jeffrey Epstein, his backers, because he never really had money. He had people who funded him. Okay, he was never a trade currency guy. And maybe I'll jump into that for a second. But you've got to make those calls about this AI moratorium sneaking back in, just a total assault on our intelligence, on our everything, that they would now try to push this through the NDAA, the National Defense Appropriations Bill. And so it's very important to say no, it's not happening. But I think I want to talk about here with the Epstein stuff, just a little look-see, as we remember about who he is and all of that, and everybody freaking out, and Dan Bongino threatening to quit and resign. And we know that Dan Bongino has not been loving this job. Okay, he's miserable. He wants to just, be a podcaster and have his, $12 million contract. And, I think he's a massive, he's like just a huge investor in Rumble, I believe. But, he's been really miserable in this job, and now he's set up to lie, and he's very, very not into it. So we'll see if he decides to flee the ship right before this major conspiracy case to bring down huge players in the deep state is going to happen. Prayers and all of that, big prayers to God that it does. But when we look at this situation of, I wanted to talk about this and just kind of remember that we have the situation with Epstein and the whole 2008 non-prosecution thing, and how Trump, speaking of this grand jury situation and this conspiracy case, but when Trump was brought in, he was surrounded by, of course, in 2016, by all the disgusting players. And we had, of course, in there were multiple people from the Kirkland and Ellis law firm. One of them became, of course, on the Supreme Court, and that was Brett Kavanaugh. Okay. And this has a lot to do with Bill Barr. And of course, his father, Donald Barr, was the one who brought in Epstein to teach at the very elite Dalton School. You get people like Megyn Kelly's kids went to the Dalton School. So many elites in New York send their kids to the Dalton School, even though it's like massive rampant pedophilia school. But Donald Barr, Bill Barr's father, super history here with the OSS and the CIA. And he also wrote that very pedophilic book called Space Relations. That was basically a violent child rape book, basically, all this crazy, psycho, creepy stuff. But he is a CIA Mossad guy, Donald Barr, Bill Barr's father, Bill Barr being the last guy to see Jeffrey Epstein alive. People just seem to forget that. He was the last one to visit Epstein in the jail. And they also seem to forget that, years ago, 2 years at least, we already had videos of Epstein's cell, his actual cell, not the hallway that they put out in this weird video recently. And people are like, oh, the 1 minute that's missing. And Bondi's saying, oh, that's because they use old VHS in this the Met prison, the Metropolitan Prison. And it's just VHS, and they skip every 1 minute every day, and just such baloney that you can't believe it. But of course, it was Bill Barr that was the last one to see Epstein, and I hate even talking about it anymore. It's just, we already know. Allan Dershowitz came out today, and he, of course, was an early Epstein lawyer, and he said after he was with Epstein for a while, and then Epstein went to somebody else that was ended up being, what's his name, Jay Lefkowitz or something. He came out today, made a statement, Allan Dershowitz, I'll link it below, where he said, I already know so many of the names that were implicated way back then. It was sealed and shut down by the plea deal that came out of Alex Acosta, and that the U.S. attorney at the time, by George W. Bush, and this pedophilia ring of the Bushes and George H.W., and how it comes down through the ages of the CIA, with George H.W., of course, was director of the CIA from way back, setting up Reagan for the murder attempt, all of it, and the massive pedophilia. We see that Donald Barr, of course, was CIA Mossad running the Dalton School, hiring Epstein, and so many of these Kirkland and Ellis law firm people were involved directly in Trump's first team that he didn't know. Alex Acosta, out of Kirkland and Ellis, okay? Bill Barr, out of Kirkland and Ellis, okay? Alex Azar, who became Secretary of the HHS during that period. And of course, Brett Kavanaugh, as I've always said and always been very squirrely about him, just looking like a total cuck, like just controlled. And the whole thing with him, with the Archdiocese of Washington, his whole connections there, super disgusting. I'm going to get into something about the Catholic situation, what's going on with a recent attack and purge at LifeSite News that just happened a couple days ago, because Pope Leo, of course, is now, as an American pope, leveraging that hugely against Catholics in the United States and to shut down Catholics who want to not have a black pope, black meaning the satanic pope, the black church, all of it, running the Vatican. Well, that's a whole aside. But when we look at this and we look at Donald Barr again, under him, we get, the MK Ultra files going missing. When Bill Barr, of course, was working for George H.W. Bush. I think he was AG then. He was AG because, right, it was his second AG time under Trump. They installed him. And I'm saying all of this because this is the swamp that Trump was confronted with as a non-politician, but a very strong America First guy, trying to come in and make sense of this, and having all these people put in his face to basically be part of the administration. And, it's the same this time when we have the American First Policy Institute that has done it again, which is the corporate donor class, putting in so many picks there into the cabinet. And the huge, the huge attempts for Trump to combat these people. Okay, and there is a huge fight going on, and it is very important. So, as we look at this and we look at Clinton Foundation on the ground there in Kerr County, and we look at what happened with the wall of water, just destroying that camp and killing all these girls in this huge sacrifice situation. And this was right after the big beautiful bill was passing, taking the moratorium out. Okay, and now it's back in the NDAA. I believe they're all connected, and that's what I wanted to point out there. And so we're getting, lots of strange readings here about Todd Blanche being kind of a plant in there as well at the DOJ. Emil Bovee as well. We'll keep digging in there to see what's going on. But it's really interesting because RFK Jr. has come out since all of this. And they, of course, tried to entrap him. Epstein tried to entrap RFK Jr., who, of course, was anti-vax and all of this stuff. And he had his own personal issues and things he was dealing with, not to mention brain parasite, but basically trying to get himself, right and into the work that he's done, hundreds of lawsuits to do with environmental attacks that were real, not climate crap, but actual poisoning, actual neocon style poisoning of our water, of our environment, all of it. Well, he basically put out that a statement saying that Epstein cabal must be brought to justice and prosecuted for the victims in the American public, and that yes, he had 2 plane trips with Epstein, and that it was him and his family going to Colorado, basically being tried to dragged into this, and he was horrified and then never met with him again, refused to, knew that he was a giant creep. So it's all interesting, it's all interesting. We keep watching, we keep trying to figure out what's going on. And so, there's a reason why this is all coming up now, the blowing up of the Epstein stuff. And of course, with Bibi's visit to DC and trying to get the weapons and funds to Israel and Ukraine. And it's a beard in a way, because it is limiting people's view, to see the bigger picture, which is the economic recovery of the United States of America against what is a huge global push to destroy it. And so if we, if America, if they do sanctions like Lindsey Graham is trying to put out, where he's saying, oh, we want 500% sanctions, whatever that means. It's massive against Russia. Okay, Lindsey Graham. And we need to primary Lindsey Graham. And Mark Lynch down there in South Carolina, he's a great guy to go. I think Mark Lynch for Senate.com or lynchforsenate.com. I'll link it below. Need to support this guy. Need to primary out Lindsey Graham. The people of South Carolina have to stand up against this guy. And of course, there must be massive, huge deep state, big money there in South Carolina that keeps Lindsey Graham in all these years, because obviously he doesn't represent the real people in the MAGA base there in South Carolina. So let's get Lynch in, okay, in 2026. This is coming up. This is a great fight to get into. So if you're in the area, please get involved. But basically, when we look at this with Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal and Kellogg, who's a moron, going to this Ukraine aid meeting, okay, after Netanyahu's visit to the White House, and all of this trying to push this 500% sanctions on Russia, that will destroy, this whole plan is to destroy America's energy dominance plan that Trump is trying so desperately to roll out, okay, and to get our energy prices down. And also they had a huge win with Germany, where LNG to Germany, liquid natural gas, will come from America to Germany. So leverage that against, send your own Patriot missiles to Ukraine if you want to. But basically, how about you leverage it against don't send, no more money to Ukraine. No more money. Russia has won the war, okay? And they've won it against the most corrupt, disgusting regime, okay, that was oppressing the people of Ukraine and running as a rogue regime based on the economy of sin of the Radhanite policies to do with trafficking of every kind, okay, and stealing everything from the Ukraine people. And the elites in Ukraine, who, we constantly hear all these talking points about, well, the majority of the people there are supporting Russia, and we never hear that. It's just the meat grinder of, we have to start this World War III with Russia, and it's absolutely not true. And so we need this no sanctions on Russia. That's another thing with your phone calls. No Lindsey Graham, Senate creating this bill on the sanctions on Russia. That will literally destroy Trump's trying to bring energy, not just dominance, but energy freedom back to America. Okay, they already were able to kill most of the Green New Scam stuff in the BBB. Okay, last week, 500 billion of it cut. Several projects will go on, but the hope here is that Trump is going to impound that money down the road. That's what we need, the impoundment of the money going to these projects. And if they can't do it in the BBB and they can't do it in rescission packages, then he just needs to impound the money, because we have the most largest fight for the life of America right now. This is our chance. Okay, this is it. And so no massive sanctions on Russia. And basically, in my opinion, Russia won the war. Let them do it. Let them, take it. And we'll be interested to see. But with Rubio in Malaysia, with Sergei Lavrov, foreign minister, of Russia, a third option here. We've got a new idea that could be a way to peace with Ukraine. We'll wait to see what that says. But I'm still squarely on Rubio's intentions, and of course his Israel commitments. And of course, again with that we get Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton. Let's get him out as well. Tom Cotton, the other neocon out of Missouri, senator, basically, still trying to gut the power of DNI Gabbard, trying to steal the power of what is supposed to be the director of National Intelligence, the ODNI office, of its ability to do oversight, especially on the CIA. They want to steal that oversight for the CIA, limit to only 645 people, sounds like a lot, that work for the DNI, and basically bring back to the CIA massive more powers that we've all been trying to strip from the CIA. And so Tom Cotton's up to that. That's another thing you can mention. all right, that you'll be against Tom Cotton's bill trying to strip the power of the DNI, especially they're doing it because of Tulsi Gabbard and everything she's trying to get done. It brings up, Susie Wiles. It brings up, the Wiles Bondi connection, the Florida situation, Netanyahu, all this stuff with Pfizer, both of them. We have strange stuff going on where Bondi basically has done something here to do with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to do with a case against Pfizer, trying to get that dismissed, okay, and ongoing prosecution of Dr. Moore out of Utah, who basically gave saline shots to different people who were being forced to take the COVID death jabs to keep their jobs. And so he was willing to give them saline shots instead. And he is being massively persecuted, trying to prosecute him and end his life and livelihood, while Pfizer killed, tens and tens and tens of millions of people for entertainment purposes only, and they're getting a pass. So Pfizer, Israel, Netanyahu, the whole situation of Netanyahu signing an agreement with Pfizer that they can use the entire Israeli population as a giant experimentation zone and own all their data and their DNA, right? And it's all so dodgy, and we wonder what behind the scenes Trump is doing to stay afloat amongst this, because this is a huge assault. You can, I do not believe that Trump is deep state. I don't believe he is even pro Netanyahu. I believe that he is trying to get this country away from the globalist control, while it's coming from every side. And of course, the BRICS situation going on, last week in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where they have come up with, massive new things that they're going to, put out, where they're going to control a whole new governance system. They want a global governance system. They want to create a different UN. Great. Not great. I don't want any global UN, whatever. Actually, just sovereign states where they trade on their own currencies and are gold backed. And wouldn't we like that for the USA? And we have whispers that Powell is about to resign from the Fed. And of course, if that happens, we absolutely need, and Powell also being on the board of the Bank of International Settlements. He's on the board, okay, of the Globalist Cartel Bankster, high unit that controls the federal banks, all the world banks, and is massive economic attack against the USA. And that's what's going on. I mean, that's what they're doing. And if we can't stop them, in this 4 years to 3.5 years that we have left, it is vital. And so, yes, we want justice for everybody, all the children and the girls and the women that were trafficked, and all of it from Epstein et al. Okay. That has been going on since 1945, okay, and before that, okay, ever since we have the OSS leading to the CIA and then the FBI creation. These control files have been happening. It's how they do everything. And so if that becomes our main focus, we lose the golden egg here, which is the recovery of our economy and the creation of a way of doing business based on trade and tariffs that will not be totally taken down by the EU International, okay, the global cartel, the Global Bankster Cartel. And so this is where we're at. And meanwhile, we've got the AI summit going on in Geneva. They want to make, Trust Valley there in Geneva, where they create a global governance. There's so much more coming out, where the World Economic Forum wants there to be e-states, Estonia as the model. In Estonia, I believe Barack Obama is a citizen of Estonia as an e-citizen. And they want this to happen where you can become an e-citizen of whatever country you want with these net states, they're calling them. Net, like worldwide net. And that they want to push this. We have Melissa Fleming out of the World Economic Forum, head of communications, saying that they have partnered with Google to stifle all information coming up for global governance control on elections, things to do with climate, think weather warfare and total weather warfare attacks on the United States of America and across the world, and global governance. And of course, SDGs. They're still hanging on to this thing that they can pressure us through climate to destroy. You know, they want the natural asset corporations. And it's been a while since I talked about that, but they're still going for it. They want those natural asset corporations whereby they get to trade on people not using anything in the environment. And that's what these sanctions on Russia, 500% sanctions on Russia plus secondary sanctions on countries that do trade with Russia, it will collapse our energy infrastructure. That's the basic infrastructure of oil and liquid natural gas, rebuilding coal, to become dominant in this country. It will triple or quadruple our energy prices. It can't happen. And so it's so vital that you call and tell your senators and representatives that you absolutely are against Lindsey Graham's ideas for 500% tariffs on Russia. Russia won the war. Let's just face it. They won the war regardless of MI6, CIA embeds, the Biden coup, the Israel North. They won the war, and it needs to be accepted, and there can be peace, and there can be whatever. But USA, it's the most destructive and awful thing if Trump keeps going down the road of Ukraine and just making some money on some military hardware, even in the billions, is not going to solve it. It's not going to solve it at all. We have already this $21 billion deficit backlog to do with Taiwan. That's what Bridge Colby is saying, that, you know, we already owe Taiwan Stinger missiles that they bought years and years ago, that they bought 500 of these Stinger missiles, and they still have not been delivered purposely to Taiwan to protect themselves against China. They were sent to Ukraine, and they've been sent to Israel, and not to mention the USA, right? But the Stinger missiles that Taiwan bought, okay, have not been delivered in order to give them to Ukraine and Israel. And this is huge because the USA doesn't even have them, right? And trying to make money on fast production of military arms is way, way, way less important than building up our own infrastructure of defense and pivoting towards Asia, giving those missiles to Taiwan, which we actually do have a serious interest and need to do with their semiconductors and do with their trade and business with the United States, and protecting ourselves from the Chinese threat, okay, versus there's nothing we need from Ukraine at all, okay, or the EU at all. And it's the pivot of that is so crucial at this time in the Trump administration. And I pray that he is working this to the optimal outcome here, to use these 3.5 years as wisely as possible. And we see this in reflections of things like we get the situation where Sean Duffy has now been put in. He is the Secretary of Transportation, doing a fantastic job. And he's been put in to temporarily head NASA. Okay, and this has to do with this whole Elon Musk attack on Trump, trying to create this third party, which would destroy possibly the midterms for the Trump team and MAGA and America First policies. If we had a third party that even took a few seats from the Republicans, it would be demolishing. And so basically what I'm saying here about Sean Duffy is he called out SpaceX and Musk, okay, for basically trying and pushing during the Doge months to push SpaceX and Starlink to be in charge of the new FAA reconstruction to do with the creation of the new infrastructure for our aviation in this country. Basically, they needed to have fiber optics. Musk was pushing Starlink. They said, no, that's too vulnerable. We need fiber optics. It's not going to work. We also can't depend on you and a corporation with Starlink and satellite-based systems to do this. And what's so interesting with SpaceX is they are valuated at $350 billion, and 97% of that comes out of our taxpayer dollars. Okay, so all this money that Musk is worth is coming out of us. Okay, it gets down to DARPA, it gets into In-Q-Tel, it gets into the fact that through all of these capital hedge firms, you get this use, what comes down to our taxpayer dollars, going into fund SpaceX. And that, of course, then funds Starlink. And Sean Duffy stood up to that and said, what you're saying is a lie, that you can't support our federal aviation system that we're trying to put in here at all. And Trump said, okay, we're taking Musk's venture capital fund guy out in the running for the NASA position, and he's now put in Sean Duffy. And this is a very good thing, and it is, again, standing up to what is basically a threat on national security with very, very CCP-tied Elon Musk. And so we keep going on from there. There's so much going on. But when we look further at this and we look at, what else we kind of need to cover here, I'm just going to do a couple more things here. It's going to be a bit of a shorter one today. I did want to cover this thing that I mentioned of the situation with there being an assault on LifeSite News, and the guy who ran this, John Henry Weston, he founded it 30 years ago, CEO and co-founder. John Henry Weston was voted out by the board of LifeSite News to get rid of him because he has been calling out Pope Leo and his successing Francis as the new Black Pope, basically, and just showing how he is brought in just to bring in tons of American dollars, trying to go against, the Trump administration with what is the Catholic bishops, board of governors, all the money they get normally that Trump has paused, everything to do with the trafficking of the human trafficking that Mayorkas should be in prison on treason for. Or the punishment for treason, for entertainment purposes only. But basically, all of their involvement, Catholic Charities, all of it, and what we have with John Henry Weston is calling out all of this in the last several years so amazingly, and really reporting on Leo, his past, what's going on now, what he's doing with his sign-ons that have everything to do with just the same woke policies, the same Paulo Freire style, the liberation theology, all of it. And they voted him off the board. And this has to do with funders. And they basically even said in their statement where they fired John Henry Weston of LifeSite News, this is a commitment to best serve our donors. And so that has to come out soon. I'm going to try to cover that, of who these donors are, of course. And basically, this has to do with the obliteration of the Latin liturgy that they had pulled back on briefly, where they were attacking in North Carolina and other places to get rid of the Latin liturgy. They're so afraid of this Latin liturgy, right? Because as so many people have said, and exorcists have said, the devil hates Latin. Okay, it seems to be a direct language that speaks directly to Satan. In exorcisms, it literally gets rid of demons. It's this language going so far back to the times, okay, of Jesus coming and basically banishing demons, and his disciples being empowered to do the same with the gift of the Holy Spirit. And the situation here with this Latin liturgy, LifeSite News has been really pushing it, and that Leo is now full bore back to attack the Latin liturgy and get rid of it. So very important here. We've got to stay on top of that, and I'm going to there's 5 board members who voted him out, John Henry Weston, and I'm going to check him out. Maybe I'll talk to Leo Zagami, see if I can get him back if he has something to say about it. So make those calls regarding the NDAA, trying to sneak back in the AI moratorium. And it sounds like they always backwards, they always do reverse speak with these things. The moratorium is that for 10 years, AI can take over the country and do whatever it wants, including get into our sensitive laboratories, try to take control of those as well as steal all of your data, your intellectual property, all your creative work, everything that appears online, stolen by the tech bros to create technocracy, which is what Elon Musk wants with his New America Party. And so we're going to, I think, probably leave it there, even though I know I could go on and on. I will say this. We had Ryan Ruth, of course, in court yesterday. He has decided he wants to be his own defense lawyer, which, and Judge Cannon, she's fantastic. This has been, haven't heard if she accepted that. I've heard she was going to resist him changing his defense attorney here at this late hour. But him representing himself, that was kind of a wrench thrown in. I will follow up on that for Monday. But, we need to understand, coming back to the Russia-Ukraine thing, we have 101st Airborne in Romania right now. They stole Romania. They stole the election. They stole it from Georgescu, tried to threaten him, put him in jail, like they're doing to Bolsonaro in Brazil right now. Trump gave them a 50% tariff to do with this, okay, plus all the BRIC stuff. But, Georgescu, and then it was Simeon, who was his number 2. They stole the election from Simeon. And so Romania is an EU captured country, even though the people are 100% against it, like massively. The polling was just off the charts. It's one of those too big to rig things that they rigged, even though it was too big. They totally stole it in Romania, and we have the 101st Airborne there. And they are the ones who would be sent into Ukraine, okay? The American people's daughters and sons especially, sent into Ukraine to go into the meat grinder of 675,000 Russian troops that are assembled there for summer offensive. And, I'm just in this situation of, I'm not all yay BRICS, but I am, let's end the feds, okay? I am, let's end the UN, let's end these centralized banksters rule. And we don't want, then some CCP, Russia, communist, all kinds of whatever, controlling the next thing. But we are in a bit of a losing situation when we have America first and we want sovereign countries to control their economy and their destinies. How it comes down here with the dollar, the whole OPEC situation, the whole, dollar tied to the petrodollar as the world's currency is, has been wielded as a weapon by our country, by our leaders, and their deep state and the EU and the and MI6, the royals, all of them, okay, against the world, becoming the military strong arm since World War II to carry out the warfare and using the dollar to do so. And so, it is, I'll just leave it there. I'll continue next week. I know this has been kind of a strange one. Just, it's that change is afoot. Change is afoot, right? We have this huge astrological thing going on too, where there's like massive, massive revolutionary change. And let's not lose, the bigger picture for anything here on fire right now. The things to do is the work of calling your senators, making, really loudly making it known, no AI moratorium, no sanctions on Russia, no more weapons to Ukraine, and I would say Israel, that we're not in these foreign wars. We remember George Washington's final speech, okay, when he finally got to leave the presidency after working so hard to create this country, saying no foreign entanglements. That is the biggest threat. And that's where we're at now. That is what Trump has promised. And this conspiracy investigation with a special prosecutor and supposedly a special counsel going to be announced very soon in the next week to 10 days. So eyes on the prize, and we keep on from here. TGIF. Thanks so much for watching. I know it's been a bit all over the place today, but I so appreciate you. I hope this information was helpful. If you thought it was, there's ways to support the channel below. Otherwise, I hope you have a good weekend and are able to enjoy the weekend and do just life celebrating things with family and friends, those you care about. Send the prayers ongoing to the girls who perished in Mystic and all of the people. So many still missing. Pray for the protection against the Clinton Global Initiative, prowling around down there like the predators that they are. And yeah, I think that the American people are really awake, and that there's so much of this distraction, this Epstein stuff causing this firestorm. It's so important. It is very important, but it's not the most important thing. And people say it is. I disagree. It's been going on for we've been dealing with it forever. I've been dealing with it since 2008 when Epstein was first arrested and I learned about it. It's it is how it all works. And if we want to fight and take down the whole system, don't put 500% sanctions on Russia. Okay, don't give more funding and arms to Israel. The money is what matters. We have Scott Bessent and team going to Osaka, Japan next week to the World Expo there. More deals coming through, basically trying to create alliances. And it's this breakthrough of, it's like going through brick wall after brick wall, okay, of deep state bankster corporate control over America, international powers, Bank of International Settlements. And so we have to keep our eyes on the larger prize, and don't keep your heart open, keep your thoughts and prayers on the good, and that is that's the thing. Okay, that's the energy, the thought forms that we need right now to push America forward. So take action and stay prayerful. Full armor of God. We are free, and I will see you on Monday.